Hello and welcome back to the FEZ show. We are back. It's been a while. I know it's been a while, but we are back in business. We are here to review the Saudi Arabian E-Prix, both races. Tons of stuff has happened. My name is Jack Giordmaina. With me today, as always, is the one and only Jack Pickering. How you doing, buddy?
It's been a while since you've flattered me like that in your intros, Jack. It's good to be back, and can't wait to get stuck into it.
Yeah, I know. It's just, lots of things have been happening in the FEZ, like paddock, arena, whatever you want to call it, right? The magazine, new stuff, and then obviously other commitments that we've got. Just finding a time to actually do a show has been a bit tricky, but we're back. We're going to try and be a bit more regular now as we head up towards Rome and stuff like that. So let's get into the show. And what I want to talk about first is we're not even going to talk about the race, because I want to talk about Saudi Arabia, Jack. Now, obviously, I didn't believe this. And I don't think you believed this either, right, when we first, saw the stories of it. It was about this airstrike. And the reason why we brought this up, because obviously Saudi Arabia, we try not to hide the fact, but it is a contentious country, right? We know that there's things going on there. We know that people are against potentially going to Saudi Arabia. Personally, I love the Saudi Arabian Formula E track. I think it's the best Formula E track that there is on the grid, and I kind of would be ashamed to lose it, if that would make sense. But and we've had two good seasons there. We've had, two really good years there, some really good races. 3 years, thank you very much. We had 2 good years before that, and obviously the third one this year. Maths, hard. So, but obviously there was this airstrike this year, so there was a problem. So I'm like, is this the time? Do we go, oh my God, Saudi Arabia is as bad, in air quotes, as possible, and we shouldn't be racing in Saudi Arabia? And maybe thinking about that, is F1 a target? Because this missile was heading straight towards Saudi Arabia. So technically, Diriyah was the target. Maybe, was Formula E the target? We don't know. We're not saying Formula E was the target. But there was a potential for a massive explosion. Let's say that missile does not get intercepted, Jack. There is a huge chance that we're watching the podium celebration and something bad has happened. And we've got from a massive sporting success to a human tragedy. And I just think it's a fine line, and I know it can happen anywhere, and this is the thing that we want to discuss. This could happen anywhere. Any sporting event around the world is subject to a terrorist attack. But is this something that Formula E, you feel, need to address, need to look further into, and actually, come up with a investigation to prove that, okay, this stuff, well, we can't say it won't happen again, but maybe it wasn't a direct attack on Formula E, per se? Or do you think, they can't let this go underneath, the rug and under the carpet?
Well, yeah, I do see that absolutely. And I actually think that when Formula One will go there, like what happened with Formula E, because when Formula E announced it was going to Saudi Arabia, there was a fair amount of backlash. When Formula One announced that they were going to Saudi Arabia, there was 3 to 5 times more backlash than there was beforehand. And I think that that's going to be replicated. I think that's going to be more 3 to 5 times more dangerous than potentially this was, because Formula One is a bigger event. I think, yes, I agree with you. Diriyah is the best track on the calendar. I absolutely love the. I think they were calling the bobsleigh section, like going down the hill, and what they were calling on the race weekend. Obviously it is an issue. The country is renowned for having human rights issues, unfortunately, which they are trying to better, and yeah, it's a difficult one. They've got 7 years left on their contract now, I think. But obviously we may not even be in Diriyah next season. They may head to, I think Neom was one of the places that they were considering, or something like that. But even then, it is a risk to go to these countries. However, I think, especially for Formula E, I think it's a risk that they kind of have to take. Financially is what is the first thing that comes to mind, because Saudi Arabia are paying a lot to host to host the Formula E races, even more to do the Formula One races. And yes, there is this whole issue of sports washing, especially in that region. We've got the Qatar World Cup next November as well. I think these things are going to happen, and thankfully this airstrike didn't happen. Weirdly, I didn't even know that there was an airstrike until about 5 or 6 days after it was going to happen. But it's a weird one. But I think racing in Saudi Arabia is something that Formula E just does.
Yeah, I think you bring up a huge issue there with and I'm not saying financially that Formula E have just gone, well, money's more important, who cares about ethics and who cares about morals, who cares about that, let's just go racing and get as much money as we can and keep this sport that we all love, that is true, we all love it, financially stable for the future. It's hard because you hear a lot of stories about Saudi Arabia, but these are good stories that I'm coming on to. You hear people going into, and I feel sorry for the people in Saudi Arabia because a lot of gigs, people have been going to Saudi Arabia for gigs now, and comedy shows and stuff like that, and big time comedians and bands have been going to places like Saudi Arabia to perform. And they're coming back and they're telling these stories that the people are so thankful, they're so grateful that, they've never had this opportunity before to experience comedy, to experience music shows, to experience racing, football, whatever it is. And that they are incredibly grateful, but then it's just a shame that things like this, overshadow it. And it's even hard to bring this up as the first talking point on this show. Like, we could have just talked about the race and then vaguely mentioned that, oh, by the way, this happened. But as a journalist, that's not the right thing to do, right? This was the main story. Unfortunately, whether we like it or not, this was the main story that came out of Saudi Arabia, out of those two E-Prix, because this is a human tragedy potential, right? And it was a potential to cause human death. I'm not saying that was the aim. I'm not saying that it was aimed at Formula E. It was just an airstrike that happened at a vicinity of Saudi Arabia where a Formula E race was taking place, and that could happen anywhere, as we've said. But then you've got to, as a journalist, you've got to ask the question. You've got to ask the question to Formula E. What are you doing? Are you looking into this? What are you doing to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again? I know this is out of Formula E's control, and to say to Formula E, what can they do to prevent it is impossible, right? That's just impossible because they can't control someone sending off an air missile. But they need reassurances from Saudi Arabia, I would assume, that this won't happen again. Because we can't go in 3 years' time, right? We've gone back 3, and then another one happens. We still got a couple of years left on their contract. Do we still go? Do we go now? And those are the questions that I think need to be answered now. And I think Formula E just need those reassurances, and they need to release those reassurances. They can't just get them behind the scenes, because these questions will remain. If we go to Saudi Arabia, it'll be a hot topic going into season 9 of next season with Gen 3. Or whatever, or season 8, sorry, before we get to season 9. Maths again, struggling. 7, 8, 9, right? But it will be a topic of conversation. Like, will something like that happen again? Do you know that this won't happen again? And as a journalist, that is the question you have to ask. So that's why we started with it. I think we're going to move on now. We're actually going to talk about some racing, right? But I just wanted to, tell the viewers and tell everyone who's listening to this, like, why this is important and why we can't just overshadow this, and as journalists, why we have to answer the questions, ask the questions to Formula E, because if no one does, then stuff like this just gets overshadowed. And I don't think, if it went catastrophically badly, which we pray never happens, people would be asking the question, well, why on earth are you there? And Formula E would be in a really tricky situation to get their one out of that one. But anyway, let's talk about some racing, because Mercedes, oh my days, Nyck De Vries, where has he come from? Last season he was good, right? Last season he was good, and he was consistent. He had a bit of bad luck, but man, that first race weekend, dominating practice, dominating qualifying, winning the race, just wow. For me, I'm thinking now that Mercedes must be one of the main contenders to challenge Tech Cheetah for this season's title, just from race 1, because it was so dominant. I know Diriyah is quite a fast-flowing track, but that might suit them, Mercedes, when we go to some tracks like, Valencia, Rome might be quite fast-flowing. So I think there's some tracks on there that might suit them. Maybe Paris might be a bit stop-start. Monaco might be a bit stop-start. Might not suit them. Who knows? We'll find out when we get there. But so far, Jack, Mercedes, they look good.
Yeah, they were really, really impressive on day 1 in Diriyah. Nyck De Vries, as you said, FP1, FP2, group qualifying, Super Pole, led every lap, won the race. You cannot get much better than that. The only thing he missed out on was the fastest lap, which coincidentally went to his teammate. Admittedly, he used fan boost on it, so he didn't get the point. I think that went to René Rast in the end. But still, it shows that Mercedes are to be a contender this season, and actually it was right. It was really unfortunate that the day later, when we'll come on to this later on, but when Edoardo Mortara had his crash and Mercedes were pulled from qualifying, we couldn't see how good Nyck was going to do in that qualifying session, because going from Group 1, it was going to be dirty, it was going to be dusty, but I reckon that he could have still. Well, I don't think he would have managed Super Pole, but who knows? Maybe even a top 10 on the cards from a dusty Group 1 would have been phenomenal for him. I think he did snag a couple of points in the second race, anyways. But yeah, they are definitely a force to be reckoned with as we go on to the future, as we go on throughout the season.
For me, it was interesting because that second race. Let's flip the switch, because Tech Cheetah, right, who we're saying is the main the favourite is always the favourite. They have to always be the favourite, even though they're using the Season 6 powertrain. But obviously their Season 7 powertrain comes into effect in Rome. But I think personally, maybe you and I were a bit worried about Tech Cheetah going into the first race. They didn't qualify great. They didn't race great. But the second race, they came on strong with their Season 6 powertrain. Now, we're saying Mercedes could be the main challengers, but we don't know what Tech Cheetah's powertrain will look like. We don't know if it'll, and you'd expect it to be a step up, but how much of a step up is it going to be? Are they going to step up? Do you think, they're going to step up and Mercedes were like, oh yeah, we thought Mercedes would be title contenders, but now that we've seen everyone's Season 7 powertrain, we were kidding ourselves and Tech Cheetah looked brilliant? Or do you think Mercedes may have done enough development to actually, match Tech Cheetah and be with Tech Cheetah in their Season 7 powertrain? Because yes, it's close time-wise, and I don't know what gap or how much we're expecting of a gap to Tech Cheetah to make and Mercedes to make, because they were both very quick last season. So that's what I want to know. Do you think Tech Cheetah will jump and lead the field again, or do you think they will be evenly matched going into this season?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. I think with the Season 7 powertrain, which is coming in Rome, I think that it's going to make it. I think that they're going to go a step above the rest. After their Diriyah 2 performance, I can't see it not happening really. After the first before the first qualifying session, I said because we were in Discord, we were chatting about it at the time. I said that the two Cheetahs wouldn't even get top 20 on the grid going from Group 1, and they didn't qualify in the top 20 until Sergio Sette camera crashed and the Blomqvist, Cassidy and Muller's times were disqualified. So thank you, Sergio, you lost my little bet.
Yeah, which was a worry, and I suppose that's the qualifying system. And there's one team that also haven't put out a Season 7 powertrain, is Nissan. And who was the man that was fastest in that qualifying group, which was Ollie Rowland, right? So straight away, we're thinking, okay, Tech Cheetah look good. They look in a good position. They look quick in that Season 6 powertrain. They did a really good race in the second race. But Ollie Rowland was the quickest driver in both Group 1s on the Friday and the Saturday. So that's got to tell you that the Nissan powertrain is still a very good powertrain. And that they could be a contender going into this season as well. Once that powertrain's come in, I think it'd be really interesting to see what Roland can do, because he looked very quick. But can we ever count out Buemi? He's sort of been the silent man that sort of blitzed Formula E in those first couple of seasons, and then season 4, season 5, it's kind of fallen away. Season 6, like, he's there or thereabouts. He's doing his bits, but it's not the Buemi of old. Like, could this be, if Nissan have the car? I think it's a big season for Buemi, because I feel like he's got to step up. Roland looks like he started this season strong, and I want to see something from Buemi. But what do you think on Nissan?
Yeah, Nissan, I think when they take their next, when they take the powertrain in Rome, I think that they will step it up. I was also shockingly surprised by Dragon. I'll get onto that in a little bit later on. But yeah, no, Nissan, I think we saw Ollie take his first win in Berlin last year, and the thing is, he's just been growing like every time he gets in the car. When he started in Diriyah back in season 5 with his first full-time seat, I think he finished 6th or 7th in that first race, and he took his first pole position later on in that season, and then last year he took his first win. I wouldn't be surprised to see Ollie Rowland compete for the championship. Seb Buemi, I mean, I don't want to say that he's getting on a bit, but Ollie is definitely a lot younger, and so I think he's more capable of fighting for that title. But yeah, Seb Buemi, he's always there or thereabout. He's always gonna have a say in it. But yeah, those teams that are still got their season 6 powertrains, which are Techeetah, Nissan, and Dragon, they all did exceptionally well in Diriyah, and so I'd like to see what step they're going to take going forward when they go to Rome, because like even Dragon, when they would they had absolutely nothing in season 6, they're using the same powertrain, but something's changed. Something has seriously changed for them to get into Superpole on both days technically. Yes, the other one was disqualified. Day 1 was disqualified because one of the other Dragon went in the wall. But yeah, I think those 3 teams, something big should be coming soon.
For me, I think it's always about optimizing packages. So what, Mark Preston, who's very good at this, will always talk about is optimizing software. And I think maybe for Dragon, maybe for Nissan, even Techeetah, right? One reason why they could be is that obviously they're allowed to sort of maybe optimize the software, and then obviously that software that they've optimized can go straight into the season 7 powertrain, because they've made it better. Hopefully the season 7 powertrain is a bit more efficient, and that all helps. It all helps them make them quick. So maybe they're spending that time just making the season 6 powertrain better, while also developing the season 7 powertrain in the off season. Could be huge, actually, and because they've got a better understanding, better knowledge of the powertrain, all of that data and all of that information can be easily transferred, because it's software. You can update software as much as you like in Formula E. That those teams could have developed from that, whereas other teams maybe forget about. You look at new software for the new powertrain, and it's basically like a new cycle. Obviously, they take old stuff and bring it over, but they're obviously looking at new stuff because it's a new powertrain. Like, why wouldn't you? So I really think that is going to be interesting to watch. But another team I want to talk about, Jack, and another race-winning team, to my surprise, was Jaguar. Because, I'm guilty. I'll put my hands up, right? I wrote it in the FEZ magazine. I had no confidence in Jaguar. I had absolutely no confidence in Jaguar, because they had an atrocious testing. Well, I say atrocious. They were clearly sandbagging. Thank you very much, James Barkley, for sandbagging and making me think there was a story there. But yeah, Sandbird wins the race, and I can't believe that I wrote that they're the biggest surprise of the season potentially, but they end up winning a race in the first weekend. But I want to talk about the qualifying system slightly. I think they're a good car. I'm not going to say they're a bad car. They've won a race, right? I still don't have 100% faith in them that they're the best car in the field. I feel like there's a couple of cars ahead of them. Merc, potentially, Techeetah, Nissan, maybe. So there's a couple there that might be slightly ahead of Jaguar, but not by much. We're talking a couple of attempts here, which is always Formula E. Formula E is a couple of attempts. But do you think the qualifying system helped Jaguar? Because track, obviously, we saw how much of a disadvantage Group 1 was, and, they were fairly much in the middle of the field, Jaguar, so they were able to get a good run, sort of sneak into Super Pole. They got the Super Pole appearance in race 1 thanks to those disqualifications. So that, that all sort of helped in their ability to get into Super Pole and obviously then win a race. So do you think the qualifying system helped them? Or do you think, they actually just have a solid car?
I think the qualifying system always helps those further down the order, and I think that is the beauty of qualifying in Formula E. So as soon as Bird and Lynn had their accident where they kind of, kissed on Friday, it was evident at that point those two are going to have a good day tomorrow because they would be in Group 4 in qualifying. And so, yeah, obviously, Gunter also crashed out that race, and so so those were the three to look out for. And of them, I think only Bird really properly capitalised. I can't remember if Lynn got into Super Pole or not on day 2. But yeah, obviously, the qualifying system always helps them. But the thing is, Jack, before that weekend, you said they'll finish 13th and 17th, and they've come out with a podium and a race victory. So, egg on your face. But I do agree. They don't have the best car. I think that the best car of that weekend was clearly the Mercedes, and the fact that Venturi got a podium with that Mercedes powertrain, it means that Mercedes powertrain are doing incredibly well, is doing absolute bits right now, and I don't see it, but yeah, it's okay. Like after that first race, like, oh, Mercedes dominated, yeah, it's going to be just like F1. It's not. Formula E is predictably unpredictable, so I don't see it going that way anytime soon. But Jaguar are there or thereabout. They'll fall down the pecking order as we get to Rome because of the teams with their new powertrains coming in. But I think it's still going to be they're still going to be one to watch out for the odd podium here or there.
I think you make a good Venturi as a team to watch out for this season. Like, Edoardo Mortara was quick. Norman Nato wasn't too bad himself. With that Mercedes powertrain, that team could do bits, Jack.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Edo, yeah, obviously he had that accident on day 2, which meant that he couldn't race. But yeah, I think that that powertrain is quite something, and in the Venturi, obviously Norman Nato, he took a little bit to get up to speed. He was down the order in practice 1 and practice 2, but then he kind of got 13th in his first qualifying, and then obviously he wasn't allowed to take part in the qualifying on Saturday. But even then, I mean, I don't think it'll be too long before he snags a point or two. But yeah, it obviously it's still about that building stage to get into Formula E, because as we know, Formula E is so competitive. And it took drivers, so like Neil Yarni took last year until the penultimate race to even achieve something, and we saw Andre Lotterer when he started. He couldn't get anything right in his first weekend in Hong Kong. Went to Santiago, bam, put it on pole position.
So talking about another team then, BMW, were they the biggest letdown of like the opening weekend? Because Gunther, as we said, he was in the final group qualifying on Sunday, did nothing with it, mid-table. Dennis, it's too early to talk about Dennis because it's his rookie race. I know some rookies, Pascal Wehrlein might come in and all guns blazing, it's amazing, but normally, predictably, rookies take a bit of time to adjust to Formula E, so we can't really judge Jake Dennis yet. We probably need to judge him after Rome, probably, and after a couple of races mid-season to know if he's, if he is developing, if he is improving. Same with Cassidy and so forth. But unless you can maybe think Porsche, but at least Porsche, Wehrlein was there, but then they didn't really do much in the race. So maybe, they've got a car, but they've got to sort a couple of things out. But I think Porsche, for me, are leaps and bounds ahead of BMW. BMW, for their final season in Formula E, I think it's a concern. I feel like if they were to say that they were leaving after this season, if this season was to go as badly as it started, you could understand why they're leaving, because we're not very good, right? We've done something wrong. We'll leave through the stage X back left door, whatever, right? Exit stage left. That's the phrase I wanted to say, right? But I can't believe I could not say that phrase. But anyway, never mind. For me, I just think because they've been so strong over these last two seasons, in season 5 and season 6, and they arguably could have won a championship, right? Because Gunther was on fire. To see Gunther not on fire, must show me that car's, there's something wrong with it.
Well, yeah, I think they have to be the disappointment of Diriyah, because they are the only team to leave Saudi Arabia without a point to their name, and this is a team who topped testing. And so everything we looked at from testing has kind of been thrown on its head, apart from when the Dragons who came 2 and 3 in testing actually performed in Diriyah, which was pretty damn good, especially after the last few seasons that they have had, and as well props to Neo as well for getting 2 cars into Superpole. My local team there, a couple minutes down the road, so I was very happy to see them do well. But yeah, BMW. Yeah, it was a very disappointing weekend. I think Gunther was running in the points on Friday when he decided that he'd clipped. He didn't just slam straight into the wall. He kind of clipped the inside of turn 2, then went into the wall at turn 3 instead because he couldn't steer. But yeah, it was a very disappointing from that point of view. And then Gunther was involved in that accident that not directly in the accident that red flagged the race, but he was involved in an accident at that corner about 10 seconds before that accident happened. We'll speak about that, I assume, in a couple minutes time. But nothing really came of it for BMW that weekend. Jake Dennis, I think he was in the final qualifying group for each on each day, and even though we thought BMW going into that weekend never missed a pole in Diriyah, they'd had every single pole in Diriyah up to this season, and it just didn't really come of it. I'd actually said before that weekend, Jake Dennis on pole position to keep that BMW run going, because I knew that he was going to be in Group 4, but it just never materialised. I think he had a couple 13 place starts or somewhere around there. It just didn't really amount to anything. And yeah, Gunther, he was knocked out in day 1, and he was involved in that accident in day 2. So yeah, I think BMW do have to have a long look at themselves in the mirror, but it's not like they're so far off the pace that they need to kind of rethink some stuff. I think that they can come to Rome and they will at least get some points on the table.
Yeah, let's talk about the crashes, because there was something, I think, not just the crashes, because let's talk about the crashes. I think a learning point, I feel, and I think maybe a lot of others might feel, from Formula E, because let's go back to, the free practice crash with Edoardo Mortara, which then caused Venturi and Mercedes not to participate in qualifying due to some braking issue that hadn't been resolved, or software glitch that needed to be resolved in the braking. But for me, everybody watched Edoardo Mortara go straight on and hit the wall. And there was absolutely no sort of coverage on it. It was Edoardo Mortara said, "Oh, that's a bad one," and the Formula E didn't really know what to do in that situation. And we sort of, because of practice, it's only they only speak for 5 minutes after the show, and I feel like at that point that was a poor decision, because we were left on a massive cliffhanger, knowing whether or not Edoardo Mortara, and everyone's then jumping onto social media, right, to find out, is Edoardo Mortara okay? Has something bad happened? Everyone asking unbelievable questions. Oh my God, they didn't show anything, because, so that means something really bad has happened, and people just jump, and quite rightly so. Some people will jump to the worst conclusion because we know now from Formula One after Jules Bianchi, if something is not shown, this is pretty serious, right? So I felt like Formula E should have, made something aware and maybe ended the show with a statement saying, right, about if Edoardo Mortara is okay, if he's not okay, what's going on. But I felt like it was just completely glossed over and nothing was then said and we didn't know. But, if they cut to a shot of Edoardo Mortara getting out of the car, even if he's walking gingerly, right? We know, okay, he's hurt, but he's okay, right? He's not going to perish from this. And it was the same, I think, Jack, with the Alex Lynn crash, right? Red flag, right? We haven't really seen the incident for the red flag, okay? Not much is going on. We now know that Alex Lynn slid on the ground upside down into the wall, right? That's what we know, okay? So, let's put it this way. The medical team are not going to keep Alex Lynn upside down in his car for 10-15 minutes, right? They're not. So, we had a podium celebration and people were on Twitter like, how can you have this podium celebration, which looks so celebratory, but we haven't seen if Alex Lynn is okay. We haven't had any mention of Alex Lynn being okay. We haven't seen Alex, but we're all celebrating like he's fine. Like there's no problem here, nothing to see here. Let's enjoy our podium and let's say bye and so forth, right? And I feel like there must have been a shot in that time, but the crash had happened. The safety car, the whole 2 minutes, then getting into Parc Fermé, then doing the interviews, then getting onto the podium. There must have been a shot to see if Alex Lynn was out of the car. And walking, there must have been something to check because, in my honest opinion, I think with the state of the accident, it was a bad accident, but I don't think it was that bad of an accident, if that makes sense. I feel like the survival cell and everything that the Formula E car did its job. So I think we've seen worse crashes than that in Formula E and in other motorsport series. In hindsight, I think he would have been okay and I think he would have got out. And I think because we never saw that shot of him out and okay, a lot of people, Jack, took to social media after the race, going absolutely crazy, thinking, oh my God, we nearly lost Edoardo Mortara. Now we don't know about Alex Lynn. Like, what the hell is going on? When maybe just a shot, maybe just something, to say Alex Lynn is okay, here he is, all is good. And then we go on with our lives.
Yeah, there was, if I remember correctly, there was a mention Jack said whilst Sam was walking to the podium that Alex was being rushed off to hospital, but he was okay. But that was all we really got. And yeah, I'm with you on the Edoardo Mortara thing. It was like come back in an hour to find out whether Edoardo's okay. It wasn't kind of it wasn't really in keeping in terms of like the proper feel of what was happening. The Edoardo Mortara crash actually made me think about Carlos Sainz's accident in Russia in practice. I think in 2015 when he just went into the wall and went underneath the barriers. And yeah, that was a weird one. But I think the main thing to take away from these is that they are freak accidents. That they are unlikely to be repeated again, and the Mercedes cars were allowed to take part in the race, which meant that the powertrains had been fixed and they'd been cleared by the FIA. They were safe to run, but with the extended runoff time with the race broadcast ending at half past the hour. I think there would have been enough time to go like, okay, look away now if you don't want to see this. But yeah, this is more or less what. But then again, actually, there wasn't actually any camera footage of that. It was CCTV, wasn't it? So it was CCTV and one marshal on his phone or something like that. There was no real footage that they could grab of it. So they were only able to post it when they'd actually got the CCTV camera out in the end. But yeah, no, I think the main thing to take away from these were freak accidents. I think it's unlikely for both of them to happen again at any point. But yeah, the main thing is that both Edo and Alex are okay, and they'll be back for Rome.
Yeah, for me, seeing the crash isn't important, right? It's just that shot of, even if it is Alex Lynn up, getting in an ambulance, being seen by a doctor, right? And someone getting a camera down there, you know, worst comes to worst, you send a cameraman down there to try and catch a glimpse of him, and they go, dude, you know, this ain't good, right? And then you go, right, that's fine. But if there's a chance to get a shot of him up and well, sitting there, it just puts so many people, I feel, at ease. And I feel like that was just missed, and I feel like a real missed opportunity. And it's just something I think Formula E should learn, because it was so hard to like go through Twitter and see so many people unsure, questioning, and just stop all of that. A simple shot could stop all of that. If there's no shot, then we know something's proper up, and we're sending all our thoughts and prayers, right? But it was like leaving us on a cliffhanger and not coming back till Rome in 6 weeks' time, and like what? Like, when are we gonna find out? Like, how are we gonna know? Like, and then you're just obsessed looking at your computer screen waiting to find out information, when really and truly the information was already there, that he was okay and he was fine and he was taken to hospital to ended up probably being precautionary checks, right? Just to check that there was nothing broken, and just a couple of x-rays here and there just to see if everything was okay, and everything was fine. That's probably what happened, right? In the short term, or in what actually happened. But it felt like it could have been so much worse, and I just feel like we didn't need that, if that made sense, Jack. But I think for a first podcast back, is this our first podcast of 2021? It can't be. No, it's not. That's a lie. It is. No way.
No.
Apparently, who knows?
I think
it feels like we've been away second. Jack's in my ear going, it's the second one. I'm like, okay. But it's been so long since we've done one, so it feels like the first one. But thank you, Jack, so much for coming on, chatting with me. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Pleasure as always.
And that is pretty much all we have time for today. Thank you so much. If you're really enjoying the content, please remember to hit the subscribe button and the like button. And you can obviously support us on Twitter as well. You can come and follow us on there if you haven't done so already. But thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to the FEZ show. Thank you so much, and goodbye.